Good morning, and thank you for joining us for today's important press conference as we highlight progress and development under the UK Caribbean Infrastructure Fund UKCIF project. This is an initiative that continues to play a vital role in strengthening infrastructure, resilience, and sustainable development in Grenada. I am Jamila Lewis, and I will be your host for today. We would like to acknowledge members of the media who are with us this morning, those that are in person and those joining us online. We thank you for your presence, your continued interest, and your role in ensuring that accurate and timely information reaches the wider public. We also recognize those that are joining us via the various platforms that are carrying this program live. I wish to assure you that your engagement is valued, and if you do have a question, please share it in the comment section, and our panelists will make every effort to address them. Today's press conference provides an opportunity to not only share updates, but to reaffirm our commitment to transparency, collaboration, and long-term impact. The UKCIF project represents a strategic partnership focused on delivering tangible benefits to communities, improving planning processes, and sustainable growth. We are pleased to be joined this morning by two key representatives who will provide insights into the project's objectives, implementation, forward directions, and we know you have a lot of questions as to the challenges that we have been experiencing in the South, particularly with the road. First, we have Mr. Wim Cox, who is the manager of NAWASA's Planning and Development Department. Mr. Cox's leadership and expertise have been central to guiding the development and framework of this project. We are also joined by Mr. Nigel John. Mr. John is the project coordinator for this project, who continues to oversee the coordination and execution of project activities and will speak to implementation, progress, and outcome. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us today, and we do thank you for the great work that you have been doing thus far to advancing this important initiative. The format for today's press conference will include remarks from our panelists, followed by an opportunity for members of the media to ask their question. Once again, thank you and welcome to this press conference, and I now invite Mr. Wim Cox to open with remarks. Mr. Cox.
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Lewis, and as I always start, it's a pleasure to be able to come and update the public as to what's happening. We know that a lot of people have concerns, questions. But just before we get into the details of that, and Mr. John is going to do most of that, just to remind, edify the public as to the South St. George Water Supply Project, what it was established to do, objective. This project came about as a result of the constant issues with water supply in the south of the island during the dry season. Identifying that issue year up and year, the authority, through its effort, would have received a grant funding. It's a collaborative effort, Government of Grenada and the United Kingdom Infrastructure Fund. The project has two components. The first component includes the upgrade of the our current Concord water treatment plant. The plant currently does just about 600,000 gallons per day. We're augmenting that to 1.2 million gallons per day. In addition to that, we're going to be adding 700,000 gallons of water storage at Molinier, because of course storage is a key factor in our operations. The Concord infrastructure now stops at the Melville Street area just in front of 𝐂𝐲𝐹. So the second component of the project, component 2, now includes the expansion of that line, or the extension of that line from that area, from Sandal Tunnel all the way to Sandals in the south. Now, some key considerations. This project has been in implementation for the last 6 years thereabout. A lot of issues, COVID-19 would have created challenges and would have brought us to this juncture where we were at implementation. The fund has an expiry date. That terminal disbursement date is March 2026. As a result, the project has to be accelerated to be able to accomplish the implementation within the time. Now, given the size of the project, the magnitude of it, and the amount of infrastructure work that it requires, NAWASA, we were always cognizant of the fact that this was going to be challenging. And hence the beginning of the project, we brought all our stakeholders on board, informing them that this is not going to be easy, but we have to get it done because we must deal with the issues of water supply and the water supply challenges to the south of the island. The project commenced the physical implementation in about July of last year, and we have been on the ground since with the implementation. The lot 1 to date is about 50% completed, whereas the lot 2, a bit more advanced, is about 65% completed and ongoing. The details, as I say, I'll leave for Engineer John to get into where we're at and some of the additional on-the-ground challenges that we have been facing and how we've been mitigating them to date. So,
thank you very much, Mr. Wim Cox, Planning and Development Manager at NAWASA. At this time, we invite Mr. Nigel John. Mr. John is the project coordinator for the UKCIF project. He will provide an overview of the project coordination, implementation, and progress to date. Mr. John.
Thank you, Ms. Lewis, and a pleasant good morning to everybody. Before I get into some additional details on the project, I would like to wish the nation a very happy new year. I hope that all our dreams and aspirations are reasonably accomplished. Those who do not have yet dreams and aspirations for 2026 is never too late, and it should be a continuum. Some of us may just be wanting to continue the good work that we've been doing in previous years, and I do also hope that those aspirations are realized. Getting back into the project, Cox would have mentioned the 2 lots, that is the construction lots, the lot 1, Concord and Molinaire, and lot 2, south of the island. So let's go into Concord and Molinaire. What is really happening there? As Cox mentioned, the capacity, or the plant capacity, shall be doubled, just about doubled, from 600,000 gallons per day to between 1 and 1.2 million gallons per day. Now, what does this mean? It therefore means that we are extracting more water from the Black Bay River. However, you don't abstract water in an unsustainable fashion. So there is something that is referred to as an environmental flow. Just let's call it a minimum flow downstream of the intake. How do we maintain that minimum flow, and why maintain that minimum flow? If we were to just take water from the Black Bay River willy-nilly, it therefore means that there's a chance, a real risk, that the river downstream of the intake will go dry. If that river downstream of the intake goes dry, the falls goes dry. And all the economic activity that surrounds the existence of that falls then suffers. In addition to that, we have a situation where there is an environmental ecosystem, or there are environmental ecosystems also downstream of the intake. And we have to ensure that we preserve those ecosystems. So in addition to laying pipes and expanding the water treatment plant to increase its capacity, there will be gauges installed, stream gauges, there'll be meters installed, as water meters, bulk meters, so that we can ensure that, and that is downstream, upstream and downstream of the intake. So if the flow downstream of the intake were to approach the minimum flow, that will be permitted based on our design, our research and design, then the abstraction shall be reduced. So it is going to be frightfully important to manage what we're doing, because we are not going to be providing water to address shortages when there's a possibility where, this would only last for 8 years or 9 years or 10 years or whatever. We have to ensure that this is sustainably done. So those practices shall be implemented along with the hard infrastructure. Now we have about 340 meters of pipe, new pipe, larger pipe, that is going to be laid from the intake to the treatment plant, and the expansion will be at the existing treatment plant at Concord. Yeah, so 340 meters, and we just have about 100 to 140 meters left. From the treatment plant down to the Western Main Road, it's about 2,400 meters. Installation of those pipes is complete. At the Western Main Road, there will be no pipes laid along the road, but all that is left to be done is a connection to of the new pipes laid to the existing pipes along the Western Main Road. Those pipes are in good condition and they are sufficiently large, so there is no need to pull those out or to replace those. As far as the treatment plant is concerned, the civil works, as we refer to it, that is terracing, retaining walls, slabs, and so on, those are being constructed as we speak. And the purpose for that, those walls and slabs would be to support the plant components. So there'll be new tanks called settlement tanks. There'll be new filters, backwash pump and house, and a number of components, and I would not bore the public with any details of that, but suffice it to say, the plant as we know it is going to look a whole lot more complex, complicated, and expanded. The existing infrastructure will be maintained. There is an existing treated water or clear water or clear well tank up there that will be maintained, and the two new tanks that are going to be built at Molyneux that Engineer Cox mentioned would effectively triple the storage capacity on the Concord water supply network. Why do we want to triple the storage capacity? And that is part of the resilience aspect of this project. Now, for whatever reason the plant has to shut down, the demand on the system only gives us the storage, I should say, let me say it the other way. The storage, the existing storage, which is a single tank up at Concord, would only supply a day or less, depending on time of year. So we will tend to run out of water, treated water, to supply to the public in a very short space of time. By tripling the storage, it increases the resilience in that if there is any reason for shutdown, there is more storage in the network to supply to customers. Yeah? So we're well on the way, and as Mr. Cox would have mentioned, Engineer Cox mentioned, we're about 50% complete with that and accelerating fast. As it relates to, just to jump back on the pipes themselves, the pressure testing shall commence shortly in the section of pipe already laid. They will be done in stages, the testing will be done in stages, and once that testing is complete, then the permanent road reinstatement, that is the paving, shall then proceed immediately thereafter. Right now, the trenches have been backfilled and compacted, but we will not proceed with any paving until the pressure testing is complete. Notwithstanding what I've said, you would recognize that the traffic going up on the Concord Village Road is unimpeded. The tourism operators or the operators within the tourism sector taking tours and so on up to the falls, they are continuing to do so unimpeded. And that's where we are with Lot 1. With respect to Lot 2, that is in the south from Sendell Tunnel, just in front of Ariza, or the entrance to the cruise port, the cruise terminal, right at the base of the steps to the hospital, through Sendell Tunnel and all the way down to the south. There are two bits of it. We have water supply water transmission lines, that is treated water, for potable water for use, and a sewage component. Let's start with the sewage, because that is concentrated only within St. George's. It is not just along, like the pipes would only go along through the tunnel, Mountain Street, the Wharf Road, Port Highway, and down. The new sewage pipes, or the sewer pipes, shall be installed in several inner streets within St. George's. I'm not going to list all of them, but we have Green Street, we have H.A. Blaze Street, we have Hughes Street, Mountain, the Wharf Road, and so on. We have a little change because Engineer Cox would have mentioned the need to accelerate. The initial scope would have been to remove existing sewer pipes and install new sewer pipes. That is going to take some unnecessarily long periods of time. The new approach, new pipes are going to be laid parallel to the old system, and then there'll be a switchover. So we'll be saving time and other resources in having to remove existing pipes. Those pipes or that older system will just simply be condemned. In addition to the new sewer pipes, which should have a larger capacity, and of course newer, some of those existing pipes are over 80 years old, approaching 100 years old. Some of them are clay pipes at some odd sizes that it makes it extremely difficult to connect to them because newer pipes and fittings and so on simply don't carry those diameters. There'll be 2 lift stations that will be upgraded. One lift station is right next to the Lotto building by the hard courts on the Wharf Road, Carnage. So that little building, if you are walking off the Wharf Road to go through the courts or to go to Lotto, just before there's a little building on your right-hand side, and that is actually one of the lift stations. That will be upgraded by having newer, higher capacity and more efficient pumps and new genset installed. The second lift station is right where the northern end of the project, I mentioned at the base of the steps to the hospital, that little blue building there, that is also a lift station, a sewer lift station, and that would also be upgraded similarly. Yeah? Good. Now, as it relates to the transmission lines, those will just be following, that's water transmission lines, those will just be following the main roads, again, through Sendell Tunnel, Mountain Street, the Wharf Road, Port Highway, 𝐿 Boulevard, and following the main road all the way down to end just at around Sandals Resort and the southern tip. If we go any further than that, we're in Trinidad. Now, where are we with those works? We are, except for a small section for those who know Points Lane, there's a little road that takes you to ATC, and you can go to the Rubis Terminal and so on down there. From there, going down to the end near Sandals, that still needs to be laid. Other than that, pipes have been laid all the way from Point Celine to just past the Grand Dance Post Office coming north. We then, along the little stretch from the Foliage to the Panday Junction or Belmont traffic lights, from that section going, and we're now with the pipes laid to just about the Foodland on Kirani James Boulevard. So we're well underway with that and accelerating. However, we did have, and I think the public is well aware, and you could see it, some challenges with respect to road reinstatement. Why has the road, first of all, not been reinstated immediately after laying the pipes? And that is because pressure testing must be done before the permanent road reinstatement is done. Why do we need to do it in this order? And this is because if there are any leaks, perchance, by any leaks, and we would have done permanent road reinstatement, it means that we'd have to dig through the pavement, the new pavement, to, 1, identify exactly where the leak is, and 2, to repair those leaks. The nature of the leak may mean that an entire section of road, of pavement, new pavement, would need to be dug up. It may not just be a situation where you just dig a small hole in one area and you're able to fix it. Notwithstanding that, that sequence that I mentioned, we have been moving more slowly with the permanent reinstatement than we had hoped. And there are a multitude of reasons for that I don't necessarily need to get into detail. However, we recognize that this has been a challenge, and we are moving swiftly from the very first, as the year started, or just before the end of last year. We had a series of consultations, meetings from the project team, contractors, financiers, and so on. And we started very early in this year also. And the good news is that we believe we have come up with a solution to the challenges, or solutions to the challenges. And we would realize that last night, starting last night, from the food fair traffic lights moving north, the permanent road reinstatement has actually recommenced. So paving has been done from the traffic lights coming. It's about 600 meters or so. Was done 200 meters, done last night, about 660 feet, from just by the redone gas station. Not sure what that is. I didn't do it. The redone gas station next to Galleria Mall, all the way up to just about the entrance to go into the beach by Esther's, or by the vendors market, so it doesn't sound like I'm advertising for Esther's. All right. Tonight, we will be continuing the paving from where we were stopped last night, and the anticipation is that about 150 meters shall be done tonight. Slightly less because we have a little hill to go up and there's some curves to maneuver around. Last night, the work that was done was basically on a straight stretch of road, and it's easier when you're moving on a straight stretch even for the rollers and so on. So it's anticipated, based on what the contractor and the supervising engineering consultants have advised me this morning, that about 150 should be done tonight. We will be continuing the road reinstatement all the way up to just past Sandals, and then we would just past Silver Sands. And why this area? The pressure testing has already been successfully done. We will then be moving to the section from 𝐋𝐤𝐬 Plaza. We do have a bit of paving from the Sugar Mill roundabout to 𝐋𝐤𝐬 Plaza. That had been already pressure tested, and successfully so that was paved. From 𝐋𝐤𝐬 down to Wall Street has also been pressure tested, and successfully so. And the paving will then commence from the 𝐋𝐤𝐬 Plaza coming down. The current discussions with the contractor is to bring on another team to proceed with that permanent road reinstatement, the pavement from 𝐋𝐤𝐬 going down to Wall Street, even before we complete the permanent paving to past Silver Sands, where the pressure testing has already been done. We're in the process of finalizing the pressure testing from Wall Street to the food fair traffic lights, and once that we'll get the green light, then we would continue and pave that section and then join, and this I know many of us, including myself, looking forward to this, to join across the intersection at the traffic light, because that little depression there is really slowing traffic down, especially when persons need to get out of the Montu Road and turn onto the Grand Dance Main Road. It is slowly done, and we find persons being stuck across the light. So based on my conversations with the supervising engineer this morning, we'll be looking to swiftly join that small area, because you would actually notice there's a little area, a little gap in between where the trenches go from the traffic lights north and from the traffic lights south, and there's something called a junction box that is going to be located, and the contractor will be moving swiftly to install that, and about 2 lengths of pipe or so that needs to go in, and that will be done swiftly, hopefully by the end of tonight, or by tomorrow morning that will be in, so that we could go across that intersection and alleviate the challenges that are being created or being posed by that slight depression. In the meantime, we would notice that the wetting and brooming of the loose material has increased. In fact, this morning, for those who would have been along the road, would have seen teams on Kirani James Boulevard raking and brooming the loose material. That is the base course material that has already been put in those trenches as the temporary reinstatement, and also down along the Grand Dance Main Road, further down. persons would have noticed teams also there brooming and raking to remove the loose material that has been posing a problem. So that Engineer Cox would have mentioned about 65 is actually more like around 55% overall completion for Lot 2. Before I hand back over to Ms. Lewis, I wanted to mention this project is not just about hard engineering works. And I like to beat our chest any chance we get, Ms. Lewis, with respect to the human component of this. What human component? It's not just the provision of job opportunities during construction, but within the Black Bay River catchment, we have a farming community. And this project is partnering with the Rural Development Unit and the Climate Smart Agriculture and Rural Enterprise Project, 𝐋𝐢𝐯, to bring livelihood support to farmers within the area. So those farmers would come from the Concord catchment itself, the Black Bay catchment, as well as adjoining or adjacent communities such as Brooklyn and Cotomele and so on. And there are farmers operating within the catchment, even above the intake within the Black Bay River catchment. If farming is done in an unsustainable manner, we can have things like erosion happening that would cause, a reduction in water quality in the river, which then would present challenges for abstraction and treatment and getting clean water to the population. However, that intervention of capacity building with the farmers is not just from the point of view of having cleaner water or less turbid or muddied water to treat. And how do we know this? Because there would have been a certain amount of money allocated in this project to do that. However, after Hurricane Beryl displaced so many of the farmers and their livelihoods had been threatened, the allocation for capacity building was increased several-fold. And part of that increase is literally to include for livelihood support to the farming community within the Black Bay River catchment. So how do we do this? Part of this would be including delivery of training. Training has already been delivered in December, in fact, December 1st and December 10th. There were 2 sessions on sustainable land management practices, very successfully undertaken. It's being done, the technical work and on-the-ground work is actually being done by the 𝐋𝐢𝐯 program. This project through NAWASA is delivering the financial support and overall oversight and reporting. On today, in fact, as we speak, in fact, right now, the 𝐋𝐢𝐯 team partners would be up at Concord, at the church, the first church when you're going up the Concord Village Road, distributing what they refer to as inputs. So there's plant materials and that sort of thing that is being delivered to the farmers so that they can plant out. There'll be tree crops, short crops of various types, depending on the slopes they're on and what their particular expertise or interest is. 𝐋𝐢𝐯 is not doing it alone as a government agency. 𝐋𝐢𝐯 is under RDU, the Rural Development Unit, which is under the Ministry of Economic Development. But the Ministry of Agriculture is also on board and assisting with the technical expertise and the provision of the plant material to the farmers. There also would be equipment that will be distributed to farmers. And there will be some additional climate smart agricultural techniques that would be delivered to the farmers so that they're also, the way they conduct farming, they would improve their own resilience and reduce things like soil loss and crop loss in the event of any sort of severe climatic activity or impact going forward. And I would like to give a shout out to our partners at 𝐋𝐢𝐯, of course, Dr. Stephen Fletcher, the heads the RDU unit, and we have Kenley Edwards, Schiffer Forsyth, Michelle John, and those are who are you don't see them on these press conferences, but I think they must be acknowledged because they're doing excellent work. And the last report from the sustainable land management practices sessions, the farmers themselves, after doing their own assessment, they basically have most of what they had to say was, as far as the usefulness of the sessions, extremely useful and useful. There were no farmers who thought that the intervention was a waste of time. So thank you to all our partners. Ms. Lewis?
Thank you very much, Mr. Nigel John. Nigel indeed provided a comprehensive update on the UKCIF project. I think we are at that stage that I think we're most interested in. We do have members of the media that are present with us today. So we would move to what I would consider the media segment of this press conference. We do know that there are media houses that are online. So in the order, we will get the questions first from the media houses that are present in person, and then we would move online and get those that are online. So we do have 𝐋𝐢𝐯𝐲 Faria, and we also have a representative from the MTV. So indicate who is going first, and we will. Okay, so 𝐋𝐢𝐯𝐲, we invite you at this time.
Good morning and thank you and Happy New Year to everybody. Nigel, my New Year wish was to stop paying $40 to my car wash guy so often. So since you started the repaving, I think things are looking good for my New Year wishes so far. I have a few questions. I want to know currently, in terms of the sewage, because that's a component, what is happening to sewage at the moment? It goes through the lines and so on. Where does it go?
The sewage goes through, Engineer John would have pointed out that we have this lift station, one on the Caranage. The other one is at the...
Yeah, no, I don't know what a lift station is.
Oh, sorry, my apologies. I just assumed that you understand what a lift station is. So how the sewer work, the sewer is collected from homes into the lines, and it's gravitated to some low points. Now, Grenada, based on its topography, doesn't allow for it to be gravity, for the process to flow through gravity all the way to the outfall, right? So the sewage, we have two sewage in the network, the south and the central. The central is in town, and the south takes care of sewage in the entire grandstands and so. So the process is simple. Sewage is collected from the house, runs into the lines. It flows to the lower areas. At the lower areas, we have pump stations, lift stations, yeah? Because, again, it can go uphill, so lift stations transferred to the locations where it can be disseminated to our outfall.
To your what?
Our outfalls. So
what's that?
So the outfall. So we have two outfalls, and unfortunately, so and it's one of the things that NAWASA is embarking on as we speak. Designs and so have already been completed for treatment, to sewage treatment plants. So as it stands now, our sewage goes directly into the sea.
Say it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Right. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so
Before you go back, just to clarify for listeners and viewers, this is pumped in subsea pipes, far out. So we don't have a situation where it is just discharged on the beach or just off the coastline. This is fairly typical for many territories, and it was basically what was done just about everywhere historically. When it goes far out, the mixing, right, sea currents and so on will disperse so that it becomes safer because the concentrations will be less. And I like to mention to people the fish, including whales, a blue whale that is 30 meters long, you know what they do. So, so it was fairly normal. The reason why we have to move towards treatment now is because it's other stuff, yeah, that can be harmful to the environment that now finds its way into our sewage. And in response to these new and emerging threats, including things like, believe it or not, shampoos, you know, and facial scrubs that people use. A number of these things actually include like small beads, plastic beads, and so on. You know, so these new and emerging threats, as far as the types of chemicals and the types of items that find their way, it is no longer appropriate to just discharge into the sea, notwithstanding the fact it's discharged far from shore. So when Engineer Cox mentioned that NAWASA is in the process of doing the designs, it is in recognition of what constitutes sewage in this more modern time, and the designs or the treatment facilities, just like we have treatment plants for water, they will then very soon be treatment plants for the sewage. And those will be designed in having cognizance of what the composition of sewage in a more modern time. So I just wanted to make that point.
Thanks. Mr. Cox, can you tell me how far out, how many years away are we from actually having sewer treatment, or months away? When can we begin to not dump our sewage in the sea?
Yeah, well, I wouldn't want to commit myself, but with the designs completed, one of the other challenges that are funding it, and collectively the government of Grenada with NAWASA, we're looking at financing options. Hopefully those come into being in 2026. And again, I don't want to commit myself, but understanding the gravity of the situation is something that NAWASA is taking seriously. So I would hope that by this year and next year, we can have those treatment facilities up and running.
Okay. Let's talk about the water component of it now. How much of the South's water came from Concord, Black Bay, the Black Bay catchment in the South in the past, before this comes online? What percentage of the water fed to the South?
None.
None?
None, yeah.
Okay.
As I'd mentioned, the Concord supply stops now at Melville Street. So the town of St. George benefits from Concord water. Stops here.
Okay, and I know the South does the borehole, like a combination of things. I think I remember that happens in the South. What would the water supply system in the South look like now in terms of, is it just going to be from this new infrastructure that is being developed?
No, it's not. It's the South is now fed by our main plant, which is the Annandale plant.
Oh.
Right? This project is not going to resolve all of our water problems.
In the South?
In the South. It's going to help. One of the key factors that is going to impact how and what happens is just how severe any one dry season is, depending on what happens in any one given year. So this project is definitely going to boost the water supply to the South, but in a severe dry season, it's not going to solve all of the issues. But the intent and design of the project is that this project is always going to be in combination with the existing supply, with the existing Annandale supply.
Okay, now you're increasing from 600,000 gallons to 1.2 or 1.5 gallons per day. How much of that is going to go to the South? Or is all of that going to be, well, no, that's the capacity, so other areas are also served. How much of that is going to the South?
The thing is, the supply, as we mentioned, is 600,000 gallons now, and it feeds the existing area, and that's from Concord all the way to St. George's. So it is anticipated that the additional 600,000 is going to be sent to the South.
Will any area, will you have to decrease the supply to any area?
No.
Outside of the South in order to have this happen?
No, absolutely not.
Let me just add to that. Remember when I would have mentioned earlier that along the Western Main Road, there'll be no new pipes laid, no new infrastructure. So what we're having is an extension of an existing pipeline supply from St. George's down to Point Celine. It is not a new pipeline that is going to be parallel, where we are going to be diverting a measured quantity of water for any particular part of Grenada. What we are doing is recognizing that there are shortfalls, especially in drier months of the year. So we are increasing the volume of water being put into the network whilst extending the reach of the network. In addition, in the more formal sense, if you look at how the project is designed, it is actually being linked to the Annandale water supply. We have different water supply networks in Grenada. I can't remember how many total. I don't think it's relevant, but maybe somebody who's doing a school project could ask NAWASA one day, right, and write an essay about it. But there are different water supply networks. And so the Annandale, the area fed from Annandale is referred to as the Annandale Water Supply Network, and then we have the Concord Water Supply Network. The two will be interlinked to create what will then be referred to as a Southern Water Supply Network. And they will augment each other, because our little island, main island of Grenada, has something like 6 or 7 rainfall zones. So there are times when I think we all, those of us who spend long enough in Grenada know this. You could literally be driving down St. Paul's, for instance, and it's busy raining, and then you drive out of it. Or on a different day, you are, driving somewhere and you drive into rain, because we do not have the same, it's not a homogeneous distribution of rainfall. So there are times when Annandale has surplus, and there are times when Concord may have surplus. By joining the two, you also get to share resources, to put it bluntly. In addition, this project design is meant to augment and complement other infrastructure development works happening in Grenada. So right now, interestingly enough, and this may be part, and I think it's worth mentioning, part of the frustration that Grenadians are facing, in particular with interruptions to traffic and various things. Arguably the two largest single water supply infrastructure development works in our history happening same time. So we have the 𝐔𝐫𝐞, which is even larger, all right, maybe about 3 times as big as the UKCIF, happening alongside. So no matter where you go, it seems, in Grenada at the moment, something is happening. A road is being dug up, pipes are being laid, trenches are being backfilled, and that sort of thing. So by doing these works, they're expected, and the interlinkages, by the way, in between existing water supply networks is also being done in other parts of Grenada. So similar to how Annandale and Concord being linked, 𝐏𝐫𝐸 and others will be linked. We also have, and you correctly mentioned, Ms. Faria, the use of groundwater or borehole water from the Chemin area to feed the south. There is a real risk of something called saltwater intrusion into our aquifers. The aquifer is just simply like the layer of rock, soft rock that underground that water would be trapped or stored in, or passing through. And Chemin, we know, is very low lying. The sea is right there. And these, even though you might seem that, okay, the land rises a bit, this is like where the new hospital is expected to be built, the land rises a bit. These wells are not this deep. They go down, hundreds of feet. So if you're going to be going, you basically can be in a layer close to where a salt layer would be, because the sea is just there. Old Harbor is, just a couple hundred yards away from where these wells are. And to use Engineer Cox's terminology in a previous setting, NAWASA would like to rest the wells also, especially in drier periods, because these wells, the groundwater is still coming from rainfall. percolates, finds its way into these artesian wells, into the aquifers and flow down, and it happens very slowly. So if you are pumping out at a faster rate than it's being recharged naturally, what will happen is that the salt lens, the saltwater lens that you're going to find down there because of your proximity to the sea, is going to find its way into those aquifers. And it is very difficult to undo that sort of condition. So by having to rely less on the bore water, which is a good thing, because then the bore water usage can come in as more of emergency supply and that sort of thing, rather than a constant source of the water.
Is it road repair or road reconstruction? Because I think we all appreciate those are two different things. Road reconstruction involves drainage and sidewalks and a whole lot of things, Engineer John. So
Yes.
are we just repairing the mess we made? Sorry, not the mess we made.
We are repairing the necessary mess we made. It's interesting. You add one word and it sounds different. So we actually refer to it as road reinstatement in the project, because it's a pipeline project, it's not a road project. But once you interrupt the road, you then have to, or you interfere with the road, you then have to reinstate, and the intention is to reinstate to what it was before. I mean, clearly we've had our rough areas, so where you reinstate will be nice and smooth. Why do we need to do this? It's simply because the carriageway, the corridor where we drive or walk, there's private lands, very close. In fact, we know the road. There's some properties where the last step down from the private property steps onto the road, onto the carriageway. Yeah. In some areas, including just south of the Belmont traffic lights themselves, you have the sidewalk, and then private lands, shop on the other side. There's a retaining wall. Mm-hmm. So you don't have corridors for utilities in Grenada, most of Grenada. You don't have easements for utilities, as they're referred to. As a result, even fiber for the communications and so on, the fiber optic cables are laid on the road, under the road. Yeah. So once we have to dig up, then we will reinstate. However, a separate project is currently underway under the Ministry of Infrastructure, which will be dealing with road reconstruction, which would include digging up the existing asphalt, milling it, as they call, which is like crushing it up, laying it back down, compacting, and actually having new service. So, and it's a good question, because I believe because there has been some talk in the public domain about the road reconstruction, and there are instances where listeners would hear the issue about road reinstatement and road reconstruction in the same public domain, on the same media, and thinking it's actually the same thing. But it's not. So after we're out, you would see another project, and that would be dealing with general road, as I said, the drains, the sidewalks, they're collapsing sidewalks in some areas. That project is dealing with all of that and smoothing out the entire carriageway. That project is from Point Saline coming up to town, and then from the Sugar Mill roundabout going across the link with the Cliff Road under construction in Woodlands.
I'm not an engineer, but it seems just to make so much sense to me, who just knows how to bake cake for my children and write a story or two, that if the reconstruction was coming right behind the pipelay, the water project, that somebody would have saved some money here and there or something. But maybe it's not possible from an engineer standpoint.
It is possible from an engineering standpoint. It's a timing issue. The hope was that the road reconstruction would be immediately on the heels of the pipe project. And that's actually one of the reasons we started the pipe installation from Point Saline coming north. And that was there was an expectation or a hope that it would be immediately behind, so we did not have to do the road reinstatement, because the road reconstruction would cater for that. But given that there's going to be a few months of a gap in between, we couldn't leave the road in the state because they're health and safety issues, you know, that we must consider, and your $40 every 2 days, and so on. So, and we also have had issues where there's some soft areas, especially when the rains were coming pretty heavily, and you know what November is like, where vehicles actually sank into some areas, and there was some undercarriage damage and that sort of thing. So we could not allow and cannot allow the condition to remain until the road reinstatement project moves forward.
Okay, my final question, thank you for the indulgence, Ms. Lewis. My final question, we talked about the farmers upstream from the catchment and all that is being done, and you talked about mitigation that would deal with soil erosion and so on. Can you talk to me about the use of chemicals? Because farmers use a lot of chemicals in farming, including 𝐏𝐫𝐞𝐬𝐬 still. Is there any possibility that these chemicals can get into the water supply? Would the treatment facility deal with those things, or have measures been taken to prevent such things from happening?
I will go first and then let Engineer Cox. As far as the intervention with SIAP, part of the sustainable land management practices and climate smart agricultural techniques addresses the issue of use of chemicals. Is part of the intervention with SIAP, because some of these chemicals, quite frankly, also have deleterious effects. And depending on what you're planting, and many a planter, for instance, would be unaware of this. Depending on what you're planting, if you use chemicals and you then harvest too soon, and you're talking about short crop like lettuce and so on, you can actually have residual chemicals within your crop that can be dangerous, that can cause health complications and so on. So the Ministry of Agriculture generally, I think you might have seen other programs where they have been trying to encourage the use of more nature-based solutions as it relates to pest management. I know this is nothing to do with the project, but it's something worth researching for the public. But I remember where, I can't remember, there was a type of insect that was being distributed where is like how the mealybug was treated using the wasp, for instance. And they would have been, you know, encouraging the use of more natural approaches in farm management rather than the use of chemicals, 𝐏𝐫𝐞𝐬𝐬 and those things. As it relates to the capacity of the plant,
the treatment process that we normally employ, and this plant is going to be a rapid sand treatment plant, will definitely eliminate the chance of any chemicals and so that is getting into the water, and our disinfection methods also aids that. But in addition to that, we are consistently testing what leaves our plant, just to ensure, daily testing what leaves all of our plants, to ensure that what comes to our customers, to the residents of Grenada, is properly treated water, clean treated water.
We wouldn't want to empty out 1.5 million gallons of water because some farmer used 𝐏𝐫𝐞𝐬𝐬. So thank you.
All right, thank you very much, 𝐶𝐻. I don't know if there are any other questions from the media. Okay, so can you identify your name? I know you are with MTV, so identify your name, and we're going to go forward with your question.
Good morning. I am Lily Pascal, and I'm a news reporter for MTV. I have, Ms. Faria, you aided me very kindly. I, however, have a question for Mr. Cox. I know that you explained the disposal procedure of the lift, the phase 2 lift at the Sendal Tunnel area. I'm not very versed with it, but we've had, how compact is it? And the reason I asked, we've had several reports coming in about an unpleasant scent coming from that area, and it's believed to be from an ongoing sewage project. Can you comment on that?
Yeah, I can comment on that. We've been having some issues with the sewage disposal in the St. George's area in recent time, with some blockages happening at the outfall. We have gotten some temporary relief, but on and off the problem reoccurs. We are in the process of implementing some permanent solutions, some additional, one of which includes the installation of an additional pipeline out into the ocean. And I saw Ms. Lewis mentioning, somebody asking a question about how far out is the outfall. The outfall in St. George's stretches beyond 500 meters out, and the one in Point Celine is a bit longer than that, about 600 or 700 meters out. Yeah, so that's again, there are times when we have the blockage on the system that there might be some unpleasant smell in the area, but it's not something that we keep silent. Whenever it happens, the communication teams normally put out a circular saying that, hey, we have a blockage, there is some issues here, refrain from for the marine environment, refrain from the area, because we're having challenges with the outfall, as it were. Mm-hmm.
Any more questions, lady? You have another question, Calestra?
No, I was just thinking that for the purpose, it's far if I have to walk, but I mean, for
it's far.
It seems like. But I have been told by people that there's a drain that goes off into the Carnage right next to the same little the facility that you spoke of earlier, and one on the beach in the Mount Cinnamon area down there, just a little up from Flamboyant and those places there, where I was told that those drains actually carry sewage. Is that correct?
No, that is not correct. If those drains are carrying sewage, it would be if we have some major issues with there is a lift station in that area, just in the vicinity of the trade center. So no, the answer is no. Those drains don't carry sewer. There is a lift station in that area. How the network connects, we go from lift station 1 to 2 to 3 to 4, and then out to the outfall. Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, Engineer John just points out that when it gets to that trade center area, it's lifted up to a manhole that sits just above XL Plaza, and then it's gravitated down the Morris Bishop Highway into a pump station 4, and then it goes out to the Point Celine outfall. Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I think Lily has another question. You can go ahead.
Bus operators in the South St. George area has been complaining with regards to inaccessibility to the bus stops. They believe that the equipments used for the expansion are stored there. Is that so, and what steps are you guys taking to mitigate that?
Yes, this is something that we had noticed ourselves and has engaged a contractor with getting more suitable staging areas and storage areas not just from the being able to access the bus stops, but for buses, but also pedestrians going, because there are some areas that there were gravels and so on, and persons were slipping. So these are all part of the health and safety issues that we were mentioning, because once you can't pull in safely, it means that you create some traffic interruption, potential for accident. And if you're going to have, so there's before, for instance, the one by Wall Street, opposite Netherlands kind of thing, or Gittens, we would have noticed what had happened so far is some of the material was pushed a little more to like the north part of the lay-by until such a time where it can be moved out completely to a more appropriate staging area. So this is a work in progress, moving everything out from the bus stops.
Yeah. But just to add to that, we appreciate the concern about the inconvenience, but just to advise the bus association, this is the project is a temporary endeavor, and we've identify that there are going to be challenges, there are going to be inconveniences. I saw where the excavator is parked in Belmont. Yes, it blocks off maybe a bus, but the area can be accessed. We're not saying that it is correct to do, but we also appreciate that we trying to implement a relatively tight schedule project. So again, we just want to make an appeal to persons. Just bear with us. It's a very temporary endeavor.
Just one more thing to add to that. I was hoping that that's where he was going. I would have said earlier, we don't have laybys, we don't have land, easements, we don't have land beside the carriageway. So there are instances where if equipment is needed in a certain area, to try to move it, a mile and a half away from where it's needed, to find a place that you could pull off. Sometimes it's just not really possible. And there have been instances where private property owners, for instance, have allowed equipment to be parked and materials to be stored. So we would have noticed, like by next to Wave Crest, that empty lot there, when the pipe installation was being done in that area, recognized that the equipment was parked on that empty lot, gravel and so on was stored on that empty lot. And that is because the private owner had made an arrangement with the contractor to permit that. Those options are not available all around because there are very few empty lots. And paved lots and so on, you go and you put a large excavator on it, it could actually do damage to the pavements in the private properties. So there are times when it's very, very difficult to find an appropriate place, and where you could pull off the road and allow traffic to pass during the day. Sometimes you kind of don't have a choice, but as I said, you would notice we are actually moving a lot of the materials out. Now that the road reinstatement is speeding up again, a lot of that material that we see sitting, which would have been sitting waiting for works to proceed, will actually be utilized.
Thank you very much. My final question. Are any one of you in a position to respond based on information that you would have received from the contractor? What are the working hours? Is it fixed or does it vary based on whatever challenge or so that they may encounter?
All the work for now is, or most of the work for now is happening overnight, starting from about 9 o'clock in the night. I go forward into the morning. They start shutting down somewhere around 4:30, so that they could get equipment out of the way, materials out of the way, and that sort of thing, and finish their little compaction, so that by 5 they're off the road. There are instances where, because of the work to be carried out, they can't quite stop, and usually it will be in collaboration with the RGPF, the Royal Grenada Police Force. So an example I can give, for instance, and because I know this came up, we've been asked this question close to when they came down to by Wall Street doing the installation, they had to get across that roundabout, right? And so the works continued up until maybe around 6:15 that morning, because it would have been nonsensical to stop, and then have to come back to try to do that crossing. So with permission, they continued for another hour and a half or so just to get past a certain key area, and then they shut it down. But generally by 5 o'clock, they're out of the way. 5 in the morning, that is. There are some works that would happen during the day going forward. So you would notice on Kirani James Boulevard, where they were doing welding of the high-density polyethylene pipes. That's the black pipes that look bendy with a blue strip on it. To do a proper weld, it's called welding. It's basically like extreme heat and pressure pushing the pipes together, right, with a little collar-like thing. To have a proper weld done, it can take as much or as long as 3 hours. So if you were going to try to do welding and installation at night, you simply won't have time. So They've been trying to work on the verge and do the welding during daylight hours so that they can focus on excavation, putting on the sand bed, putting the pipe, doing the covering, and coming up back to road level with the backfilling during the nighttime when larger equipment, trucks and excavators and so on will be on the carriageway at that time. So you will see some works happening during the day. There's also a possibility, based on the rate we have to move, that some of the road reinstatement works may happen during the day. That will be restricted to those areas where the carriageway is sufficiently wide to allow traffic to move in two directions whilst the road reinstatement is on the way on the side. That will be, so it's case by case.
All right, thank you very much, Lily. We do have a question from the Grenada Broadcasting Network. So can the reporter identify themselves and go ahead with your question? GBN, are you there? Right, so there seems to be some technical issues from the Zoom platform. We're going to make a final attempt. Grenada Broadcasting Network. All right, so if the situation continues, in the meantime, while they sort that out, Mr. Cox, we have been getting GBN. All right, so if you're having challenge, you can type your question in the chat on the Zoom platform, and I will ask the team for you. Or we're going to circle back. Mr. Cox, we have been getting questions as it relates to the Seven Sisters project, because of course there have been some, well, not challenges, I should say, there have been works along the road project. So let us just speak to that. I know these are all not part of the UKCIF project in itself, but it is part of the GIS project, which is another major transformational project, 125 million EC dollars that is transforming Grenada. Well, before Mr. Cox answers, the Grenada Broadcasting Network seems to be online. GBN? Sewage issue. We've heard reports of a leak in the 𝐿𝐸𝐻 area. Can NAWASA verify whether this is true and if it has received such complaints?
Yeah, from unless the leak happened while we're sitting here, I'm not aware of any such leak. But if there is, I'm sure by now our team would have received it and is probably dealing with it. So I can't say for a fact. But as of this morning coming here, I wasn't aware of any major leak on the 𝐿𝐸𝐻.
Well, I am not aware of it myself.
I think GBN, if they were able to participate verbally, may have followed up by asking, has there been a leak at any point in the past?
Actually, I was going to come in to say just that. The only reason there's a sewage component of this project is because the infrastructure is old and there have been leaks from time to time. And that is not acceptable, clearly. So the laying new larger capacity pipes is with the intention of avoiding having the reoccurrence of leaks. In addition to leaks in pipes, there have been instances where because of the capacity constraints as it relates to the carrying capacity of the existing pipes, there have been instances where they had been bubbling up at manholes, sewer manholes. The most recent I can think of was close to courts in that area. Hubbard's, well, yeah, close to Hubbard's Court, Young Street, yeah? And the bubbling up in that area. And this is why we need to increase the capacity, have newer pipes, because it's not just the bore or the diameter of the pipes themselves, but over time, when you're talking about some of these pipes over 80 years, approaching 100 years, there is, build-up also. So even the original design diameter of those pipes has been reduced over decades and decades, over generations. So the intention for this project, the sewer component of this project, is because there is cognizance of the need to improve the infrastructure to prevent leaks from reoccurring and to prevent blockages from occurring.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. John. And I do know, I've been in discussions with the police a lot of times because they usually get a lot of reports from the traffic wardens, especially in the courts area. And whenever there is a high tide, you would always see the more bubbling up of those manholes along that area. Mr. Cox, we're going back to the Seven Sisters project. I know it is not under the UKCIF project, but it is a transformational project. And I think many people in the 𝐔𝐊𝐂𝐈𝅅 water system, PTA tanks water system, looking forward to the transformation that will come under this project. And I also know that in the not too distant future, we will be doing a major work along the 𝐏𝐫𝐸 main road. So let's talk to that as well.
Yeah, Engineer John had just pointed out that fortunately for NAWASA, maybe unfortunately for users and Grenada, that these two projects are happening simultaneously. That is our 𝐔𝐫𝐞𝐬𝐬 project and the South St. George water supply expansion project. So under the 𝐔𝐫𝐞𝐬𝐬 project, many projects are underway. You'd have seen excavations on the 𝐂𝐨𝐬𝐬 main road. Well, we had our issues and challenges on the Maribo to Tivoli pipeline. You're now seeing that excavation happening in the Grenada area, which is the Seven Sisters project that Ms. Lewis is referring to. That project is a project that is aimed to augment the water supply on the eastern side of the island, where we normally have quite a bit of challenges during the dry season. So that project would see the installation of a pump station in the Adelphi area and having water transferred over 1910 and down through the mountains of the Grenada onto our 𝐓𝐶𝐈𝐅 plant. That project is well underway. We're at about 60% completed. Most of the pipelines has already been laid. The pump station is 90% completed, I would say, and we are currently installing the infrastructure within the Grenada rainforest, and that is going relatively slow because most of the excavation is done manually by hand. Clearly, we are cognizant of the fact that equipment in the forest can impact the forest negatively. So most of that pipe installation is done by hand. One of the other outstanding projects that is yet to commence, and again, that is going to create quite a bit of traffic disturbance. We have our Vendome line that runs along the 𝐏𝐫𝐸 main road is in a state of disrepair. A month doesn't pass and you don't see a NAWASA team on that 𝐏𝐸𝐸 road creating or excavating, trying to fix that line. So that is one of the projects that is earmarked to commence. That 𝐏𝐸𝐸 main road, unfortunately, has quite a bit of infrastructure in there. Besides the Vendome pipeline coming down, we have the Annandale pipeline coming down. One is already on the left, the other is already on the right. So it means, therefore, that the new infrastructure is clearly going to be somewhat left central coming down. So But again, we've already looked at it, assessed it, spoken with the RGPF, and they're going to be looking at alternative routes, one-way traffic. Cognizant of it, we are going to be doing walks mainly after the rush hour, just to ensure that persons could get to St. George's freely. But that is the next project that is to start. We anticipate that starting within another week or two. Now that we're dealing with the issues on the south from a road reinstatement standpoint, it was one of the reasons why that project hasn't started yet, because we are cognizant that the traffic disruptions are going to be many, having to, if you live in Grenville and you're coming over the Grenada to be dealt with traffic, and then as soon as you clear Lagon Road, you again having those traffic issues. So we were just trying to manage that. So now that we are confident that the contractor has systems in place and is now has a nice regime of paving and road reinstating of the southern road, we are going to commence that pipeline. It's going to start at Monkuma Junction all the way down to Dekal and continue up on the Tempe Road up to Hills of Eyes, and then onto a new tank that we have that's called the Chantilly tank.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Wim Cox, Planning and Development Manager at NAWASA. I don't think we have any more questions. Oh, 𝐿𝐿istra has another question. Okay, so it is a Lily and 𝐿𝐿istra question, so go right ahead.
Okay, she'll let me go for ask it. You spoke about the manhole, the access points bubbling up, as you say, in high tide. Explain to me how, and that you were saying that in response to a question about leakage and smells and stuff like that, right? But from what you explained, the sewage goes through pipes, and unless one of those pipes is compromised, it's supposed to work a particular way and get thrown 500 or 600 meters out. Why is it that when the tide is high, the access, the sewer access point, and the tide, gets into this issue where we have problems? Explain that to me.
It's simple. And again, Engineer John pointed out, this is the reason why this project is ongoing. We are cognizant that the system is not ironclad. The system has its issues, it has its challenges. Pipes are there from 80 years old. Some pipes are clay pipes, so it has its issues. And one of those is that of some of the manholes, and so at times when the tide is high, sometimes you do get some infiltration.
Infiltration from what point? From where? From 500 meters out?
No. Around the manholes. Around the manholes. Remember the carronage area. You have the infrastructure on the carronage. The carronage, as you know, is an area that is under sea level, and even under the road. Sometimes you have water coming up, be it through capillarity, and when you have a high tide, the entire undercarriage is permeable, meaning that it has water under there. So some of the infrastructure, and again, it's difficult to point out exactly where it is. Some, it probably through manholes, as it were. Mainly through the manholes, you just get water rising sometimes slowly, and sometimes you're not aware that the water is rising until such time that you see it bubbling. And at that point, what you do is we would either increase the rate of pumping, or some of these sort of mitigating measures to ensure that the water gets out and you don't have any sewer coming off.
So if seawater gets in, sewage is getting out at the near shore point.
if seawater gets in,
Yes, because you're saying seawater gets in, it bubbles up the cover of the manhole. You're saying, from what you just explained, it does. I mean, I thought all of this was encased and separate, and only when the infrastructure, the structure is compromised by a breakage or whatever, then you have a problem. But if there's no breakage or no leakage, everything is compartmentalized and heading somewhere to one lift station to the next to whatever. But from what you say, maybe we're not understanding. From what you're saying seawater can get in. So if something can get in, then something can get out. Or
Yeah, that is exactly the point.
exactly.
That is exactly the point. It is not a sealed system because it's an old system that has breakages from time to time.
Correct.
And sometimes the intrusion of the seawater is the trigger that lets you know that there's a breakage or intrusion somewhere. The manholes themselves are supposed to be sealed. All right, and when you have some of these that are also old, then you have penetration, so things could get in from the sides, all right, and actually enter the system. So we don't have a closed, we are supposed to have that closed loop that you described, but because of the age and deterioration of the infrastructure, yes, stuff is getting in and stuff is getting out. And this is why we're having the project, because we know that this is a circumstance that we're faced with, and we also know that it's not a situation that can be allowed to continue. Because
Correct.
once you have sewage getting out, it means that you are going to have pollution of the environment, right? It will not be, so you can have leaching eventually that could possibly make its way into the sea, right? But not something pouring out like how the outfall, where it's basically pumped and pours out in volume. If it leaks into the environment, it'll be like having a soakaway, all right? But a soakaway in, with a high water table. So
Right.
because in a soakaway in your house, after you flush, it goes from the septic tank and it basically leaches through the land. So you end up with a sort of soakaway situation where you're supposed to be having a closed sewer situation.
But
Right? So this is why the project, to address that. In other words, there would be no sewer component if there were not a problem. Having a sewer component is being cognizant of the fact that there's this recurring problem that we're trying to address.
yeah, but to that particular area, another major reason why that bubbles sometimes is that of blockages. Yeah, so sometimes when you see it bubbling, it's also because there is a blockage lower down the system. And I take the opportunity to make the appeal to persons that are on the sewage. What we get sometime in the sewer is left to be desired, and these things should not be flushed, and these things aids blockages on the system in a lot of times. So in addition to the issues with the infiltration, which does happen sometimes, many of the times that you see that those manholes bubbling is because of blockages lower down in the system, so that water can't go anywhere else, so it comes up on the surface.
So you may have to talk to the solid waste people about a stronger recycling program, which we desperately need in the country. So people put what where and have a better garbage disposal system. My final question, with all of these works that are taking place, I do have a question about the environmental issue. Are we taking more water out, and what studies have been done to determine just exactly how much we can take out? And given all the climate change problems, what do we perceive 20 years down the road with our water situation and so on? But that's a question and that's for the narrative, which I would like to invite you on, both of you or someone else. But my question, though, is with all of this upgrade that NAWASA is doing, is the board discussing, along with the relevant government ministries, any sort of increase in water rates? Are you going to ask us to pay more because you've just spent more to make things, you're spending more to make things better?
Yeah, from where I sit in NAWASA, my direct answer would be yes. But again, tariff is not managed by NAWASA. It's a decision for the cabinet of the nation.
That's why I said the board and government.
Yeah, what we do is we would present our situation in terms of how we are performing as an organization, and the determination is going to be made then. Yeah, but if you ask 𝐏𝐫𝐸𝐶 what he would like to see, the answer would be yes, an immediate increase in the tariff, because as you rightfully pointed out, all of this infrastructure adds additional operational costs to the to NAWASA as an organization. Clearly, at some point there would have to be some consideration for a tariff increase.
Can you give me some numbers on this wish list of yours?
I just no, no, I just no. Yeah.
I don't know why the engineer felt he had to try to run from the news conference. You know how much.
I want to answer the question, though. You said it's for a different conversation, but actually it isn't, and it's relevant to this with respect to. Oh, actually, no. I had earlier clock hinted at it, but it might have been missed, and we did say the design included for what should be what. That is what I was talking about when I spoke about the environmental flow, the minimum flow downstream. So there was actually research done and consideration given, and we're putting in the gauges, we put in the stream gauges and so on, upstream and downstream, is to ensure that we can measure what we take as well as measure what's left. And if it is that we have, for instance, a drier season, and we recognize that the flow downstream, that we have to be at least that downstream, we are approaching that, we reduce the intake. So this the abstraction. So when I mentioned that we increasing the capacity, it does not mean that NAWASA is going to automatically just take 1.2 million gallons per day if you cannot take. So that the capacity of the plant would be that. And this is forward-looking, yes, as it relates to what projected demand is expected to be. This is based on a projection that NAWASA will do based on studies and also with its partners, but it's also going to be influenced by the development trajectory. If, for instance, we continue in Grenada to just do everything down south, and we end up bottom heavy, we are already bottom heavy, we are going to have a problem, because the largest demand on NAWASA's supply right now is the south of the island. No resources are in the south, or sources are in the south of the island. So we always have to take from somewhere else and get to the south. Our topography does not allow us to transmit in Grenada very far. So there's this constant requirement to pump up and down. If you were to go to the parish of St. Mark, they probably have enough water in the parish of St. Mark alone to feed everybody in Grenada. But there's nothing in the parish of St. Mark that really requires a lot of water. So where the resources exist as far as water resources and where the resources required, there is a mismatch. And part of how we can alleviate that is if in our national development planning, we were to spread out the development. So we see some hotels moving to St. David, for instance. It's a good thing. Can we move further up and that sort of thing? Can we have industry elsewhere? And that would assist with the cost of getting water to where water is needed, so that NAWASA has less concern with respect to the design of appropriate tariff.
Well, you mentioned St. Mark, and you see my face change, but then you said good things. So we will take we'll take the development, and we will utilize our abundant and high quality water for economic development in the parish, but we will please beg, don't take our water and give it to the south. I would stand in the middle of the Western Main Road and protest.
Well, on this note, we're going to say we're wrapping up. That's where we bring an official end to this press conference. I would say it has been a wonderful an hour and a half. It was very informative. We say a special thank you to Mr. Nigel John, Project Coordinator for the UKCIF Project, Mr. 𝐏𝐫𝐸𝐶, who is the Planning and Development Manager at NAWASA. We cannot end with us saying thanks to 𝐂𝐫𝐶 and Lily. You all made our press conference what it is, giving information to the public. We do appreciate, and of course the Grenada Broadcasting Network. You did have a challenge with coming online, but you were able to ask your question. I also want to end by saying a special thank you to the Commissioner and members of the Royal Grenada Police Force. Over the past press conferences, they have always sitting with us. Today, they're not here, but without their support with their traffic management plan, we would not have been able to execute so much of the projects under the UKCIF project, not only UKCIF, but also the 𝐔𝐫𝐞 project as well, and NAWASA's CAPEX. We'd also like to end by acknowledging that we had some challenges with the road reinstatement in the south. We've all experienced it. Nigel always says, you know, he traverses 3 and 4 times in a day, and I travel sometimes, and we do have our problems. But as of last night, we've started the road reinstatement. More efforts will be done tonight. We ask for the public's understanding. We ask for your patience. We ask for your cooperation. All of this is for the betterment of Grenada. And on behalf of the entire team at NAWASA, we want to say a special thank you for your understanding. We would also want to acknowledge the team at the Government Information Service. I want to say a special hail out to Neela, ATN Press Secretary, for working along with me to coordinate this press conference. The team at GIS had to switch from one location to another location to be here, but it has been a wonderful hour and a half. So that's where we wrap up this morning's press conference. Thank you to all our stakeholders. Thank you to our teams. Thank you for all that are working to ensure that this UKCIF project and all of the projects being implemented by NAWASA is successful. On behalf of all of us, have a wonderful day and enjoy your weekend. Happy New Year once again.